Coming up on Serial at Midnight, Frank Tarzi returns to give us a sneak peek on what's coming from Kino Lorber in 2024. Howdy guys, welcome to Serial at Midnight. My name is Heath Holland. I'm going to keep this introduction short and sweet because we got to get to Frank Tarzi. This is his third appearance at Serial at Midnight. By the way, if you haven't heard the first and second conversations, do go back and check them out. They are still relevant. The things that he said in those episodes do not necessarily overlap with what he's saying now. These tend to be topical, focused. We are looking back at 2023 in this episode, looking ahead at 2024. What worked, what didn't work, what will we see more of, what will we see less of? I asked him about Columbo. I asked him about why certain titles get a 4K and others don't. I even asked him about Olive Films, because you may or may not know that Frank Tarzi is one of the people responsible for elevating Olive Films into the company that they became. He built that studio classic model, and now that Olive Films is no more, I wanted to know how much of that library is going to migrate over to Kino Lorber. He answered the question. There's a lot of stuff here, even a few exclusive announcements that you don't want to miss. So huge thanks to Frank Tarzi for continuing to support, to be here at Serial at Midnight. He does not do a lot of interviews. I do not take it for granted that he does these with me. It's a huge deal, and I'm very grateful for it. I'm also grateful to Kino Lorber. Listen, I love what Kino Lorber does. They are focused on movie history. I love movie history. It's my passion. It's a match made in heaven. So every single month, I get to cover every single new release from Kino Lorber and all their partner labels. So if you're not tuning into that coverage, I want you to know that that's out there. Every single month, I cover every title, and there are dozens of them. So I'm really tremendously grateful to Kino Lorber for that too. Listen, we got a lot of ground to cover. We're about to spend an hour with Frank Tarzi, get an insight into what's going on behind the scenes at Kino Lorber. So without further ado, Mr. Frank Tarzi. Thank you for coming back for a third conversation, Frank. I'm really excited to talk to you.
Sure.
You guys had a huge year for 2023, right? It was the Kino Cult label launched, a bunch of 4Ks came out, box sets. Was it 2023? It was a pretty big year, right? Was it the biggest year?
No, I wouldn't say it was the biggest year. It was a very good year. It was a better year than 2022 was. And I think 2024 is going to be a much better year for us than 2023 is. So yeah, we're working on a lot of different packages. So I think the fans will be very happy with what's coming out next year. So
There's a lot of
we
things
already have. I mean, we're already sitting on a lot of major titles that we've announced that we haven't been able to release yet because of how long it takes for us to remaster titles.
Yeah,
that's one thing that a lot of the fans don't understand is that, we announce a title, think it's ready to go, and then we run into an issue. Like Leviathan, a great example. We thought it was going to be very easy. We were just going to scan the camera negative and put it out on 4K. Most of the extras we were going to acquire from Shout because they had done some nice extras. We were going to do one or two new extras. Camera negative is not available. It's sat in Italy. And we waited close to a year trying to get access to that camera negative. In hindsight, we would have just gone ahead with what we did. We were just going to scan the interpositive and create the HDR master from that, which is what we ended up doing. But when the option to get the original camera negative is there, we're going to wait. So right now we announced something like The Last Castle. We announced it on this weekend. This is going to come out right away because it wasn't a film that I went out there looking to acquire on 4K. The Blu-ray just got released like a year ago. But it had an HDR Dolby Vision master sitting, and it's not going to cost us anymore, to release it besides the advance that we have to pay and authoring and replication. When you are removing the cost of a new transfer from these films, all of a sudden films that we were not even originally intending to release on 4K become like more of a possibility. You're like, oh, well, you know what? I could tell you there was 8 movies or whatever that we knew had brand new HDR Dolby Vision masters. One of those we were very happy because it was already on our list. The other ones, I think was 3 or 4 that we added. Maybe 3 or 4, I think it was 3. The rest of them, we were like, no, even though they're brand new HDR masters available, we just don't see them selling at all on 4K. You know, the last time we ended up releasing titles like Indecent Proposal, Nobody's Fool, and The Score, mainly because they were already fully restored by Paramount, by the good people of Paramount. So this time around, Last Castle ends up being one of those films. Now, when we street Last Castle in February, people are going to say, "Wow, you know, you just announced it and it's being released, but you announced Invasion of the Body Snatchers almost a year ago, and it's still not." But well, Invasion of the Body Snatchers, the camera negative was in horrible shape, and a lot of the restoration that was done for the previous release was not done. It was not saved properly or whatever it was. We just couldn't go back to that. It was that master was an HD master. We could have done an up-res and stuff like that to 4K, but that's not we don't play that game. We usually try to make sure if it's available for us to do a brand new transfer, we're going to do it. So it's probably going to that transfer is probably going to cost us more than any transfer has cost us ever. But we wanted to also release it, so we worked out a deal to do that. Paint Your Wagon, originally I felt that it wasn't a big enough film to put out on 4K. We put it out on Blu-ray. But then we realized the master is going to cost us an arm and a leg. It's like a 3-hour film. And we negotiated a deal with the mastering house where they're going to give us the HDR for no additional cost. So now I'm like, okay, now we can put this out on 4K. Because if we're going to be spending that much money on it, we just can't put it out on Blu-ray. We have to put it out on both formats. So there's reasons why titles get announced and don't come out until a year later.
Well, this is where I have to ask you about Columbo, because you were here in February of 2023, and it's now, I think it's going to hit a December release date, and people are like, "What happened to Columbo? Did it get canceled?" And there was some changes. Can you comment on Columbo at all?
Well, all I could say is that we had to drop the extras due to unforeseen issues. We cannot really get into the reasons why. I mean, Jim Benson, Mark Dawidziak, Scott Skelton that spent months on these releases. You know, these cost us a lot of money. We paid everybody, so everybody's been paid. They've asked me, "Can you give me more details?" And I cannot share details with them. Mm-hmm. So if I cannot share details with the people that have spent 6 months of their lives working on these extras, and they were involved in about 20 or 25 of the commentaries, how am I going to share that with everybody else? So that's the thing. The reason it was delayed from November to December is because it's such a huge package. The replication and building of the box set was going to take a long time, and we were not going to be able to hit the original street date of pre-Thanksgiving Tuesday, which will be next Tuesday. Mm-hmm. It's a huge disappointment for us. We wanted to release it right because that's right before Black Friday and everything else. That's the street date we were shooting for. But because we just couldn't make those street days, we had to move it to December. The second box set is going to come out probably next, spring, maybe early summer. And also, when you release a box set of 20 discs, each one with 4 to 5 hours worth of material on it, it just clogs up everything. Mm-hmm. So it's caused delays in other spots. Some films that we were going to be coming out that were going to be originally on time are now going to be late because of this. So that's another reason for us not to do full, complete series and do season by season like we're doing with Monk.
Yep, I got Monk right here. This is my visual aid for the audience. Monk season 1 right here.
And that's going to come one every month. So season 2, season 3. We just are working on the January season 3 release, and so by early summer we'll be done with the Monk series. Now that was another thing. We acquired that show thinking it would be one of the easiest releases we'll ever have because they had already done some nice little extras for them. We were not going to do new extras. They had beautiful new 4K masters, so we were going to put them out. But then we ran into an issue with the original masters we received had some issues, the funny thing is that's another situation where the issue that was there, I would say 95% of the people to even 99% of the people would have not even noticed it, but the loudest 1% would have, and they would have posted everywhere about it, and we went back and fixed that issue. The authoring house did not notice the problem. The people that were doing the QC for us did not notice the problem. Nobody had noticed it. It just happened that I saw a few seconds and I was like, oh, hold the horses.
Some of this stuff goes on for years. Do you remember? Wasn't it? It was 12 Monkeys. Arrow put out a release of 12 Monkeys, and it had a loop that was like 20 or 30 seconds that looped. That had been, it was their 4K release that people noticed it, but it had been in the Blu-ray master or the Blu-ray release
Yeah.
for like 2 or 3 years. Nobody
Yeah.
noticed it. It was
Yeah.
when 4K magnifying glasses came out that
We fixed Death Wish. The previous Blu-ray of Death Wish in the HD master that was being seen everywhere had a loop of a scene of the press conference in the middle of the scene where Bronson is in the restaurant eating and watching them talk about. There was like a little a few frame loop that shows up for a second, and it almost seems intentional because there's a lot of the scene has a lot of lights flashing and the glare of the television is flashing and stuff like that. But we watched it. I was like, I don't remember this being in the movie. And then we went back and actually looked at the DVD, and it was not on the DVD, but it was on the previous Blu-ray, and it was on the camera negative. This issue actually, whatever happened, it happened somehow by mistake somewhere, and we were able to go back and fix it.
I'm impressed that
we didn't even announce the fix because nobody saw the mistake.
Right.
Arrow, unfortunately, when they did that, they probably didn't. Nobody noticed it. The fans noticed it. We noticed the mistake with Death Wish, and we fixed it.
I'm impressed that you were able to, that you know these movies so well that you're able to catch this stuff.
Death Wish was kind of like complicated because there was a couple of stuff that we were like, is this audio that's in the scene, is this correct? And those when we went back and we actually checked the original and we checked the VHS and all that, and they were all there. But that scene, it puzzled me. How did it end up on the camera negative of the feature?
Mm-hmm.
It was almost like spliced incorrectly into some spot.
Yeah.
And then, but it was fixed. Thank God we fixed it, because the last thing we needed was to do a replacement program for Death Wish.
I mean, that replacement program is a big deal. That's a huge cost, right? That's one of the worst things.
Yeah, it is, and we've done them in the past. We did it for Hard Target. We did it for Outer Limits. One disc. We did it for. We've done it probably a dozen or so times. It is something that we all dread, but it happens. There's certain things that are not caught either by the QC department or the mastering department or the authoring, the replication. Sometimes somebody catches, like the whole thing with Hard Target was that on the HDR, the 5.1 was flipped. And so if you saw a train coming from the left side, you heard the sound from the right side. And unless you're putting headphones on and stuff like that, you're probably not going to notice it.
Right.
And but that was we fixed that one.
There's a lot of great 4Ks that Kino Lorber has released over the last year or so. Where are you with 4K right now? Is it still as risky as it was about a year ago, or has it gotten a little bit? Have the costs come down a little bit?
No, the cost for mastering has gone up. Cost for replication is where it was. We found a new authoring house partner that we could do authoring a little bit cheaper than we were a year ago. Again, it was like I reached out to a company that I knew that I was doing our Blu-rays. I told them, how about you invest into a 4K equipment? He was like, well, can you promise me 20 movies a year? I said, I can probably promise you that now, and probably in a year or so, hopefully 50 movies a year. Our goal is to start releasing four UHD titles every month.
Wow.
And I think in February we'll have 4 titles coming out. Last Castle being one of them, Gunfight at OK Corral being another one, because both of those were ready to go.
You're a knock on wood so that nothing happens between now and then.
Yeah, I should. The next thing you know, the audio for something is flipped, and we're hearing Kirk Douglas talk when Burt Lancaster was supposed to talk.
Yeah, it happens. I feel like there's the 4K fan is so vocal about their fandom with 4Ks. It's still the smallest market share of still the smallest piece of the pie there. But
when it comes to our part of our type of a business, the collectors business,
the boutique market,
the boutique labels, it's big. It's when we
you
have
where I was going.
There's a reason why we're all running and picking up all the films that we had previously released and putting them out on 4K. And in some cases, I end up picking up something another label had picked up. You know, I know Mad Max, Misery, those were put out by Shout before, and Silence of the Lambs was previously released by Criterion, and Ronin was previously released by Arrow. So there are times that we look at it like, well, okay, they may not think this is 4K worthy, but we think it is. And they may have thought to go back and pick it up and miss the boat on it. That could have also happened. They may have said, oh, well, we are going to pick up Ronin back later to put it out on 4K, but not right now. And, when you do that, you always take that chance of somebody else coming in and picking up the film.
Yeah.
I mean, the really cool thing is that in some cases now, especially with Paramount being a great partner to us, they've actually done some titles like Gunfight at Avoca Corral. I just mentioned Last Castle. There's another 3 or 4 titles that they had, at least another 3 films that they have already restored in HDR Dolby Vision. And from the total of 5 movies that I can think of right now, Gunfight at OK Corral, we were very happy to hear that. Was that a title that we're really looking to put out on 4K? I don't think so, but once it was available, we're like, why not? Last year, the lesser ones did not do very well for us, the ones that we took chances on.
Yeah.
But because there was no restoration cost attached to them, we didn't end up losing money. They were actually profitable releases. So we're going to continue doing that. So whenever we announce something like Last Castle, or when we announced A Decent Proposal last year, or The Score, people are like, wow, how could you put this out and not that? It's because that is going to cost us a lot of more money than this will. And this is ready to go. This is ready to be released. I'm very close to doing a new deal with Studio Canal. We just signed the Paramount deal. We're very close to doing another deal with Studio Canal, and there's going to be some really cool HDR opportunities there for us that we're going to be putting. There's going to be some key titles that we're going to put out on 4K through the Studio Canal package. Again, in some cases, the work has already been done. So Studio Canal has already restored the film. So for us, a film that, okay, I'll give you an example. Something like Witness for Our Prosecution, people have asked, why didn't you put this out on 4K? Because of depending on which studio you're dealing with, that NG request goes higher from certain studio to certain studio. So the advance that we have to pay, let's say Studio A, is not the same. For the same title, we pay a lot less to Studio B. So the Studio B acquisition is a lot more attractive to us because we're paying less, and in some cases, a lot of the work has already been done. Where Studio A is asking us top-notch 4K prices, no matter which 4K title we go after, no matter how much of a risk we're taking. So there are some titles that I really want to put out on 4K, but the asking price has to come down. We've put out 3 Billy Wilder films on 4K. We put out Some Like It Hot, The Apartment, and Stalag 17. And all 3 have done really well for us, especially Some Like It Hot and Stalag. Apartment has done a little less, but a little less because more of a, doesn't have Marilyn Monroe in it, and it's not as big as big a film as Some Like It Hot.
Yeah.
But I would love to do Witness for Prosecution. It's just I need to figure out a way to do it at a cheaper rate. Mm-hmm. We are going to re-release the Blu-ray again, encoded as a BD50, adding subtitles, stuff like that. So it's going to look a little bit better. that's something we've been doing lately, and it's been and there's all this talk like, oh look what Kino's just doing. Nobody
Yeah.
releases
That's what I
nobody
wanted.
releases more films first time on Blu-ray than us. Nobody. But if we have an opportunity to go back and fix a few of the problems on previous releases, like adding subtitles, encoding them better, uh, adding a trailer, a TV spot, an audio commentary, why not? Why not
So
do that?
you're telling me that you didn't re-release White Lightning and Gator just so you could put slip covers on them? Because that's the conspiracy
No.
theory.
The slipcover is a little bit more of a bonus that we,
Yeah.
but no, there's a percentage of people that will go buy it just because of slipcase. But if you didn't improve the actual release,
Hmm.
it was previously on a BD25, it's a BD50. This is going to be encoded at 30 DPI per film. We added an audio commentary, we added TV spots and radio spots, stuff like that. So it's overall a much better release. And it's actually coming out a cheaper SRP. The SRP, the original SRP for both of those films was $29.95. They're all now $24.95. So you're getting more for less. You're getting a slipcase, which is costing us money too. So all of that, you're getting more for less. And we just announced the last two. We did Run Silent, Run Deep, and I was surprised that Russians Are Coming was done as a BD25 because it's 130 minutes long. Same with Coming Home. Both of those were done as BD25, and both of them are going to come out of BD50 now. Now, would I do that with a title like Top Cappy, which the master was very bad shape when we released it? I was not happy with that transfer. No, I would not. That one, I would. If I'm going to re-release it, I have to get a brand new master. But in most cases, if I think the original master was a very good one, and it wasn't presented at the best we could have, why not? Why not re-release them? Especially if I'm going to renew them. We're paying a new advance and everything else. It's a very tough business. We have to regularly readjust, rethink how we're going to do things.
Did the
I'm also working on his MGM deal, which I'm trying to pick up a lot of titles for the Kino Cult brand. We're very, very excited about doing Kino Cult. It was myself and Brett Wood, the two of us. Brett had done the AVOD channel Kino Cult, and I always, even when they launched the Kino Cult AVOD channel, I told him, I don't know, was it over 2 years ago? I said we're going to do this as a brand, as a home video brand, because I said there's a lot of titles I put out as KO Studio Classics that if I had Kino Cult available to me, I would have probably released them as Kino Cult. Rawhide Rex, Deranged, stuff like that. They fit the cult brand much better than they fit the studio classics.
Yeah.
And so when you look at the first 5 films,
at the first 3 right here,
two of them were my acquisitions, and two of them were Brett's.
Okay.
And so this is something that we were working on together. And if people see that the list of titles we're trying to pick up from MGM and the new deal, they're going to be excited. Are they all first time on Blu-ray? No. Some of them are previously released by other labels. 1 or 2 have been previously released by us. I think with Scorpion. So I think this is those are gonna be. I think the fans are gonna be very happy with that label. There's things that we did different when you compare the two brands. First of all, every Kino Cult release is gonna have an O card slipcase, which Studio Classics doesn't. The title treatment that's on the front of the cover will be on the spine and on the disc art of all the Kino Cult titles. All the Kino Cult titles will have numbered. They'll be numbered. And the overall back, if you pick up a Studio Classics and you see the back, and there's like a little bit of a difference of how we place things. One has the silver banner with the 2 pictures next to it. The other one has the red banner that matches the spine.
I'm showing people. I'm speaking so the camera switches to me and people can see it with their own eyes.
So there's like little differences, little changes that we made to them.
Yeah.
And I think that it's really exciting. I think we're going to be doing some really, really great titles, you know. So
That is exciting. What what was the thinking behind that? Just the idea of the cult scene is driving the market.
when I picked up the Elsa films, everybody was like, Frank, really? Studio Classics? Elsa?
Yeah.
And people don't understand that at that point, I already had thought of Cult as a
Mhm.
as a brand. So I originally when we acquired it, it was like, oh, it was going to be, in a perfect world, it would have been Kino Cult 1, 2, 3, and 4, but they're not. So they're going to be in there somewhere. But there's been always titles that I've released in the past, like I said, Deranged, Rawhead Rex, some that I felt like did not really belong. Savage Sisters, stuff like that.
Yeah.
They didn't really belong in the Kino Studio Classics, even though AIP was a major, kind of a major studio.
Yeah.
I just felt like they would fit better under another banner. So
I wanted to touch base with you real quick about westerns because this year we got Audie Murphy collections 2 and 3, which are amazing. I wanted to thank you for those and ask, like, the western seems to be picking up some steam from what I can see. Now I can't speak to sales, you can speak to sales, but there seems to be a growing interest in westerns. We got new
no,
western TV shows.
it's more Audie Murphy.
Okay.
The Western collections that we put out did not do well. They did okay. The Westerns that we released on standalones like Quantes and stuff like that did not sell great. The bigger ones, of course, sold better, but from all the actor sets that we had released, not counting Anna May Wong, which came out later,
Mm-hmm.
she stands on her own because it's a very important box set because it's her history and all that. From all the actor sets that we released, the only one that really sold well was Audie Murphy Volume 1. And if you remember when we put out Carol Lombard, I think she was one that we had announced 2 box sets. So we actually, she was on, but that was before we decided not to do any more box sets. The only one we actually numbered as Volume 1, we never had a Volume 2 for, was Deanna Durbin, because originally it was going to be 3 volumes of Deanna Durbin films, but we went back to Universal and begged them to take the 3 films back and replace it with something else. The cool thing was Universal eventually put those out themselves. But so Audie Murphy was the only one that sold well. So I did Audie Murphy 2 and 3. People may ask, well, why didn't you include this movie or whatever? And some people say, why is Gunsmoke? Well, some of the films don't have HD masters. The only way I will be releasing these type of collections is if they've already been remastered in HD. Now, on the new deal, I'm adding Volume 4 and Volume 5 of Audie Murphy. Okay, so Volume 4 and Volume 5. Volume 4, all 3 titles have been remastered by Universal. Volume 5, all 3 have been remastered, but one of the films, the aspect ratio is wrong. It's supposed to be 2.0 or 185, and they have it at 137. And that's a film that we actually had picked up originally for Volume 3 of the Volume 3 set, and we had to drop it. So that film we are going to actually do a brand new transfer on. But eventually, I think we may complete the Universal Audie Murphy's films. We're going to put all of them out.
Wow.
So at this point, we have 4 and 5. We have released Night Passage by itself because that's with James Stewart. And To Hell and Back is not going to fit because it's more of I'm talking about his Westerns.
Yeah, but you put it out. You put To Hell and Back out. So
yeah. If we come to a point where we only have 2 left and we need a 3rd film, we may go back and include Night Passage and maybe do a new transfer or something like that.
Yeah.
So people are
That's
not angry about the fact that they bought it originally.
Would you do
also
that
for the film noir sets? We're going to probably repackage some of the films and put them out as additional sets, especially if they're films that from same director or same actor or whatever. That's
well, did those box sets sell better than the single releases, or does it just depend on the title?
The film noir boxes have been I'm very happy with.
Yeah.
Of course, some have sold better than others. Um, but in this new Paramount deal, we have at least another 5 or 6 volumes.
Holy cow.
And there's going to be some titles that have been previously released by Olive.
Yeah.
Like this current box set had 2 titles that had never been out before, the one we just announced. But it also had Crash Out. And Crash Out had been previously released by me when I was at Olive. Now, I reacquired it because Paramount has done a brand new transfer. And the previous release had no extras, so we were able to get a nice audio commentary for it by Alan Rody, so.
That's wonderful.
But yeah, the Paramount deal has a bunch of more.
Let's talk about, you gave me a natural transition point. I want to talk about Olive really quick because Olive has closed their doors now, but people may or may not know, I think we've covered it before, but you worked at Olive. You came in about a decade ago, and you were doing the catalog thing. A lot of what you're doing for Kino
Well,
Lorber.
Olive Films existed before I went there. They had released like 8 or 9 DVDs, very minor films. When I decided to leave Kino was because it wasn't anything to do with the merger or anything like that. It was because Kino at that time was not ready to do what I wanted to do, which was studio releases. I felt it was like a perfect time where home video business was coming down, where the studios who had never wanted to license their films again are now actually opening their vaults. So I said, this is a perfect opportunity for us to do this. My previous boss, God bless his soul, he passed away, said, no, we would rather renew some titles. We don't have enough funds available to pick up this 25 or 30 films you want to pick up. So I knew the person at Olive, and I went to him and I said, hey, how about I built you, we build you a new brand and put your label on the map. And so we discussed, we agreed. I negotiated the deal with Paramount, went to the Jerry Lewis building at the lot. I remember that very clearly, sitting there. And so we finally agreed on a list of titles. We ended up picking up 27 films. And the first 5 movies we put out were Crack in the World, Henny Calder, and 3 film noirs: Union Station, Appointment with Danger, and Dark City. And I can tell you some of those films are part of the current deal. We've acquired some of those again. And when I was there, I wanted to do extras, but he was very much against it. He was like, oh, let's do later on, we could do signature editions, and which they started doing after I left.
They did, yeah.
I told them, well, you could do that for certain movies, but you cannot do that for Dark City and Union Station. So why don't we add like a commentary or maybe even a trailer if we could find it? They didn't want to do it. I forced some extras in, like for the Boogans or for a few other titles. We ended up doing some extras, but and then so I pretty much put them on the map. And then after 4 years, I decided to come back to Kino, and
you've been slowly but surely bringing over a lot of titles that they've let go, that Olive let go, be bringing them over to Kino Lorber. And as recently,
well, they expired, they didn't let go.
Right.
But this was like, those were titles that I think Eric Wilkinson, who was at MVD, he acquired for Olive.
Eric again.
He was there. He replaced me for a very short period, but he could tell you the story himself. I'm not going to tell you, but he left after a few months of there. He left and he went to MVD. And
let's call Eric really quick. Let's get him on the line.
But Eric acquired the American Ninja Films for. As soon as they found out that I was doing an MGM deal, they went and got.
Yeah.
When we announced our first 8 or so MGM titles in July of 2014, next year will be the 10th anniversary. Olive, with the help of Eric Wilkinson and another Kino employee, Brett Wood, they picked up some MGM titles. So I had nothing to do with the MGM acquisitions, but everything that they had acquired on Paramount, from Paramount.
Well, you do now, but you do now.
Library, All
Yeah.
of that stuff I had acquired. I was all my like
So Republic, did you just say Republic?
yeah, all the stuff that we released, The Quiet Man and all that, it was all my acquisitions.
What so now that you don't have to answer this, but I want to ask you anyway, just to see if you'll if you see if you will. So all those Republic pictures, I know they're not huge sellers. I'm thinking about those John Wayne movies from like 1933 or whatever it was, the Three Musketeers, things like that.
We put all of those out on Blu-ray when I was there. So
You did. Now
yeah.
that they're gone, now that Olive's gone, any chance of those coming over to Kino Lorber? Because those discs
No,
are going
I mean
for big money.
I have the sales history in front of me.
Yeah,
Uh,
they're probably pretty small.
Unfortunately, when I was at the few that I didn't release at Olive, like Dakota,
Yeah.
the one with Gene Arthur that I ended up releasing here. I'm forgetting Lady, I forgot what it was called, Lady something. It was with Gene Arthur and John Wayne. There was like two or three that I hadn't released um, at Olive. I ended up releasing there and here, and they didn't sell well for us. And
Hmm.
from the 30s and 40s films that he did for Republic, of course, Rio Grande, Quiet Man.
Yeah.
Quiet Man is huge. That's a major, major. Sands of Iwo Jima, a few other ones have done well. Majority of those films, even the really good ones like Dark Command and stuff like that, they're not big sellers. So the three of the Musketeers films, maybe somebody could pick them up and put them out as a collection, as 8 films. But if you're gonna do that, why not pick up the whole Musketeers library? Because it was like I think they made like 50 of those.
Yeah.
There was only 8 of them that involved John Wayne, and he did 4 before Stagecoach and 4 after. We probably had, but when Stagecoach came out, he became too big of a star to stay
Yeah.
in Musketeers. Um, and so Lady Takes a Chance. That was another one that I released at Kino. That so from all the John Wayne Republic titles that I passed on, that I ended up not releasing at Olive, for one reason or another, both Dakota and Lady Takes a Chance, the film elements were in really bad shape. That's why when I was at Olive, I passed on it. A lot of people say, well, why didn't you guys release those two? Well, we didn't. But when I came to Kino, I looked at that they had just newly restored both. I picked them up and put them out. I wish I could tell you that they did really well, but they didn't.
Yeah.
Um,
The reason I
the
asked you
same is
about
true. The
that,
same is true for the Raw Rogers movies. The Raw Rogers movies didn't do
oh,
as well as we hoped. We picked them up. They were, William Whitney films. They're very good. They're beautiful
yeah.
color films. Some
The
of the
reason I
serials
ask you
that
about it is because I'm afraid that they're going to die. I'm afraid that those movies are going to be lost. They're going to go out of print. I guess there's digital. There's always digital for stuff like
they
that.
all have been. But the one thing that I could tell you is that Paramount has been incredible. I mean, just amazing as a company for saving these films.
Okay.
They know these films are not going to be money makers for them, but they're
Right.
protecting them. They're preserving them.
Okay.
Most of the public library has been remastered in HD. They're all like in good shape now. Anything they actually went after films that were about to they were hanging on their last leg, and if they hadn't done a scan and done the work needed to create a brand new master, those films could have been eventually lost.
Hmm.
So they did save a lot of films, and
Well, I know from our past conversations that preservation is important to you, which is another reason I wanted to ask
yeah,
you
and
about
then
that. Because you
I
don't.
could say that yeah, they may not be available in the home video market or even streaming, but the films themselves will be safe. And
Okay.
if somebody one day wanted to go and acquire them and put them out again, they could. Would that be me? I don't think so.
Okay. I think I'm going to put a call out to the viewers. Let's pool our money together and buy those Republic movies so we can put those out. We'll get
Well,
the
I can tell you
license.
that I did pick up some John Wayne titles in the new Paramount deal.
Okay.
Or any of them Republic. I think maybe one or two.
Hmm.
Um, I know I asked for the Quiet Man and Rio Grande, and they didn't want to license those two. Um, but
Well, this is another thing about Olive that, and I may cut this out. I'll have to think about how I feel about this, but I'm going to ask you while we're here. When that news came out that they're going out of business, a lot of people were like, should I buy these discs now? There was a lot of the fear of missing out, right? Like, well, I got to get as many of those Olive titles as I can. But then there were a lot of people that were saying, no, Frank will bring those over. He'll bring everything that he can to Kino Lorber. So people trusted you to save a lot of these movies, and you have. You've brought a lot of the formerly Olive titles over to Kino Lorber. So I know
Yeah,
you'll probably.
and in the new Paramount deal, we have at least 20, maybe 25
Wow. Okay.
previously released
And
titles,
they'll be better because they'll have extras, most of
and
the time.
they all have new transfers.
Yeah.
They're gonna have superior transfers. They were because I have to be honest. At Olive, we were very we had limited funds, and some of the masters we released I was not happy with, and I think Paramount probably wasn't happy with. So Paramount went back and remastered a lot of those films.
Mm-hmm.
So when I saw that they were being remastered, I was like, you know what? Let me pick those up again and re-release them. Better transfers, better encoded, subtitles, commentary, maybe trailer. You know.
Yeah.
So
You're a visionary because at the 10 years ago things were so different. This whole scene was so it was just the beginning of what we see now. Like the seeds you planted back then are still.
yeah, I mean, it's like I said, the business is regularly changing. So if you don't change with it, you're not going to survive.
Yeah.
You have to do things differently. Um, as far as 4K format is concerned, I'm willing to take more chances, but the price of the transfer, the advance, and everything else that's involved has to make sense. So I may release a lesser title on 4K because it's an easier release than a more deserving one because it's going to cost so much that I'm not sure we're going to recoup. So we cannot, it's not about, nobody could accuse us of being doing things only for money because we have released more obscure films than anybody else in the business. And I'm not talking about, well, people say, well, yeah, well, what about all these B movies, these, labels like Code Red and Scorpion well, B movies actually they make money.
Yeah.
A lot of those B movies, those B sci-fi horror titles, they actually are money makers because the current Blu-ray audience loves that genre.
Mm-hmm.
But when I pick up a 1940s or 1930s lesser known film because a key director is involved or a couple of really good actors are in the cast, I know those are not going to make money for us. They're not going to be, if they're part of a package of films that are going to have some major successes in them, then it makes that decision for me a lot easier. Then I'm like, okay, I could acquire this film, even though I'm not going to probably make that much of a profit.
Mm-hmm.
I'm not going to really lose money on it. And all these other bigger films that are part of the same package, same umbrella, are going to kind of protect the lesser ones.
Mm-hmm. And you want them out because you love movies, and you're running a business, but you also
just
want
look
to
at
get
the film noir collections. There are films that I put out in the film noir collection. I mean, I wouldn't say we have scraped the bottom of the Universal film noir barrel because there's like 10 or 15 there that I'm like, no, I cannot touch those. But we have gone as far as we could with those when it comes to Universal titles.
Mm-hmm.
But fortunately, with Paramount, we're in MGM and maybe other partners in the future will be able to do more of them.
Could you imagine if you could ever get access to that Warner Brothers archive because they've got some great film.
But again, if I got access to Warner Brothers archive, am I going to go after the little film noirs or if I'm going to go after stuff that I know? So you have to understand. I know that the preservation department is very demanding. I know that their masters cost more than masters for another label, another studio may cost. So that makes acquisitions of some, a really cool film noir that they had released in a box set, a lot more riskier for me,
Yeah.
because unless they've already remastered it. If they've already remastered it, then it makes it easier.
Gotcha. Well, I don't want to keep you too long. You've been really generous with your time. As we wind down, is there anything that you want to talk about or that you want to promote that's coming up?
No, I just wanted to bring up the fact that there's this that we're working on some really great stuff. We got, like I said, we got a Studio Canal deal, which is going to include a lot of renewals. I would say more than half is renewals, but it's over 100 titles.
Wow.
And we have a Universal deal that's going to be hopefully happening early next year. We just signed the Paramount deal that's over 100 films. We're working on TF1. We're working on MGM. The MGM package kind of excites me because it's very Blu-ray centered and it's very Kino Cult centered, and it has a lot of renewals, and it has some titles that have HD masters that have never been put out, and I'm taking a chance of putting them out on Studio Classics. What else is there? I mean, we're working on other stuff that I cannot really discuss.
How are the French movies that you've got your deal with Gaumont? How are French movies doing?
Some of them do very well. I think sometimes these collections really work. I think the French noir set did well, and we may look into doing more of those if the right ones become available. Now, in this current TF1 deal, we have one French noir. I'm not gonna go and take two previous ones and that we released and put them in a set. Right. I'm gonna probably release that one by itself. But if we end up doing another Gaumont or TF1 or another Pathé or somebody else deal or MK2, and there's titles there that we could acquire and put as a collection, we would. The French Noir set was all three films were very good. They all have major stars in them, Jean Gabin, Jean Moreau, and Lino Ventura. I think the only I would say that they're also, the French films are riskier than, if I'm picking a 70s action film from France, it's not the same as me picking up there's no way a title like Outside Man would do as well as Seven Ups or something like that. It's just that's not possible.
Right.
But but Outside Man is probably going to do much better than a lesser known Jean-Paul Belmondo action film from the 70s, because it has major American stars in it and it's mostly in English and all of that. I guess we could, if we're gonna. Last time I know I confirmed the TV show during the interview.
You did, yeah.
Maybe I should do that again. Just confirm something. Well, I guess I could say that next year, and I'm gonna say pick a Paramount release because the other deals are not signed yet. Next year we will put out Shane on 4K UHD for the first time. So
fantastic.
That's one of the all-time great westerns.
Yes.
We're gonna put it out. So that's an acquisition I'm very happy about. I'm very happy that's gonna come out soon. Like I said, it's one of the most beautifully shot films ever. And it's gonna look amazing, I think, on HDR Dolby Vision. So
that's great. Thank you so much for announcing that, and thank you for putting that out. A lot when these videos go up, people say to me, please tell Frank thank you for what he does, because they see the work that you put into this stuff and they really appreciate it, but they don't necessarily have a direct line to tell you that.
No, I appreciate the fans. We wouldn't be anywhere without them. Yeah. You wouldn't have your show, I wouldn't have right. It's the fans that really carry everything. Is that there are times that I wish we could do everything on 4K and I release every title on on HDR, but that's not realistic. And there are decisions, every decision we make I think about it for a long, long time. Right? It's just like it's not when I decide like, okay, let's release Uncle Buck on 4K and not Fletch. Believe me, I love the Fletch movies. I grew up, I saw both of them in the theaters. I love those films. If the Blu-rays do really well for me, 2, 3 years from now, would I put them out on 4K? Yeah, maybe I would. But at this point, I felt more confident putting out Uncle Buck on 4K than I did Fletch. Am I right or am I wrong? I don't know. I think I've done pretty well in this business, so I think I have a pretty good idea of what things work. But the differences between the two films is not just, oh, is John Candy bigger than Chevy Chase? I don't think that's the case. I think it's John Hughes, Macaulay Culkin, all that stuff when he put it all in. That was the beginning of that film led to Home Alone, and everything else. So I think that's why. I mean, I could tell you in the next Universal Paramount deals, I'm doing more comedies on 4K.
Great.
We are going to put out more comedies.
Fantastic.
Some pretty big ones. So a year ago, 2 years ago, outside of Spaceballs, I wasn't too confident putting out comedies on 4K. Now I'm willing to take a chance. I know they're not going to do the kind of numbers that Invasion of the Body Snatchers or Good, Bad, and the Ugly and stuff like that does. But I think with some of the prices, like the authoring and stuff coming down a little bit, I'm willing to take more chances. And especially when something like Last Castle or The Score becomes available to us, and it's not going to cost us any additional mastering expense.
Yeah. Well, that's great. It's up to us to support it now. You put the comedies out, we got to support them. People say, well, comedy's dead. Well, it's not dead, but we got to support this stuff.
Well, comedy as a genre is pretty dead now, but the classic comedies are not dead. The classic comedies are still, there are people still love them. I mean, I would, anybody that tells me like, Young Frankenstein and Airplane and stuff like that, those movies are not dead. Those movies will always be around. Naked Gun, stuff like that. But I'm also like, me taking a chance, I'm talking about, 90s comedies, 2000s,
I mean, you're going to put out It's Pat on 4K?
Which one?
I said, are you going to put out It's Pat on 4K?
Not It's Pat. But I would put out, if it was available to me, I would put out Waterboy on 4K from the same studio. Yeah. So I would put that out if it was available to me. But unfortunately, that's what. But like I said, I would put out certain type of titles on 4K because I think they have a cult following. If they're not just comedies, they're also cult. Kind of, they've kind of moved into becoming kind of cult classics. And those are the comedies that I have a little bit more. I have more confidence in putting out on 4K because now people also, Missing in Action. We remastered 2 of those films from 4K scans, and the third one in 2K, which annoyed some people. But again, 5 years from now, 3 years from now, 2 years from now, would we put those out on 4K? Maybe we would, maybe we wouldn't. Same with Code of Silence. Same with a lot of other titles that we've put out, action films with Chuck Norris, Charles Bronson films. At this point, I cannot see myself putting out Mr. Majestic on 4K. 2 years from now, maybe. At this point, there's probably like a handful of Charles Bronson films. I'm not talking about Magnificent Seven and Great Escape and stuff that he was in. I'm talking about Charles Bronson in the lead. There's probably a handful of his films that would take the chance of putting out on 4K. And one of them was Death Wish, which I already put out. And if Vinegar Syndrome had not put Death Wish 2, I would have put that out. But I'm not going to put up 4 and 5. 3 maybe. 4 and 5, I'm sorry, I'm not that crazy.
All right.
It's just not gonna. Those are too risky. So,
I think your track record speaks for itself, and I think that your gut has carried you a pretty long way. So keep listening to it. Well,
thank you. It was nice doing this again. I will talk to you soon.
Yeah, thank you so much for doing this. It's always a pleasure. We want to encourage people to go check out the Kino Lorber website. and to there's a new Amazon store, right? It's Kino Lorber store on Amazon that we should
Yeah,
reference.
yeah, it's the Kino Film Collection. Yeah, that's so
Yeah.
about 350 to 400 films. We're adding new movies every I'm not sure every week or every month. So that's also an exciting uh, thing that's happening for us. We may end up sometimes putting out some studio titles on there, license them and put them on there. So especially our new restorations and stuff like that. So they'll be up for a short period of time where people will go there and watch them via streaming if they don't want to be buying discs. But that doesn't mean that we're giving up on physical media,
Physical media
because
forever.
what I'm working on right now and continue to work on, if people actually saw what it was, it would be pretty intense. We're acquiring a lot of stuff, so
I bet you are.
we'll be around doing this at least for another few years. So
Well, I can't wait for it. Thank you again so much. I appreciate it.
anytime.
I come out of these interviews really fired up, really excited because, you know, I'm going to say it again, we're living in a golden age for physical media. And that doesn't mean that it's the most widely adopted format for the masses. That's not what I'm talking about. I'm not talking about adoption. I'm talking about choice and quality. I'm talking about how all these movies now, we never have had so many movies getting 4K restorations, commentaries, the kind of packaging that collectors go gaga over. We have never had it so good. We are living in the golden age of the boutique era, and I am here for it. And Frank Tarzi is one of the people responsible for making this happen. Listen, if you like this interview, if this is one of your first engagements with Serial at Midnight, I do this with a lot of companies. I've done interviews with many of the heads of the distributors. And it's something I continue to do. This is a passion of mine, is to talk to the people behind the scenes, find out how the sausage is made. So dig into the podcast archive, dig into the Serial at Midnight YouTube interview archive. There are dozens and dozens and dozens of conversations just like this. I talked to Kenneth Johnson, the showrunner for The Incredible Hulk and the I worked on the $6 Million Man, The Bionic Woman, V. I've talked to Don Murphy, the producer of the Transformers franchise. But if you're like, well, the Transformers movies aren't for me, how about Natural Born Killers? You know, how about adapting comic books and video games to movies in the 90s before that was really widely done? That's such an interesting conversation. And he started in horror. He's directed one movie, and it was a horror movie. It was talking about maybe a thriller. I got to talk to him about that. It's an awesome conversation. So these are the conversations I am pursuing with Serial at Midnight. This is what I want to do. This is what we're talking about here. Thank you guys for showing up. And listen, hey, anything you can do to support Serial at Midnight would be greatly appreciated. I do not make money off of this. This is not, this is given to you for free. I give these away for free because I love to do them. But there's no monetary reward here. I don't do sponsorships. So anything that you can do to support Serial at Midnight is so appreciated. There's Patreon. There's YouTube memberships. For $5 a month, you can become a YouTube member. Keeps this channel going, and it gets you access to exclusive conversations. And it's not throwaway stuff either. I really try to put a lot of fun and personality into the exclusives. It's things from my collection and conversations that we're just not having anywhere else. So I just want everyone to hear that whatever you can do, every single person makes a difference. Not just for me, but for every independent creator. Every single person that supports them makes a huge difference. It makes it possible. So again, thanks to everybody that's left reviews on Apple Podcasts. Thanks for all the engagement on YouTube. Thanks for the thumbs ups. Thanks for the likes, the subscriptions, the comments. If you're not subscribed to this, do it right now. Subscribe. Go down, click that button, subscribe, ring the bell so that YouTube is not in control of what you watch. You are. Be in control of what you watch. Guys, this is a joy for me. Talking to Frank Tarzi, talking to you guys, sharing this content, this is an absolute joy for me. I'm excited about it. I feel optimistic. I just get fired up. I'm like, this is what I love, and we're in such a good time for it. So I know you're here for it too. Thank you guys so much. Continue the conversation. Listen, you can, if you're watching this on YouTube, there's comments. If you're listening to this on the podcast, feel free to reach out, fire an email away. All the links are in the description of this episode. Let's continue the conversation. I love this stuff, and I appreciate you guys. Take care. Till next time, I will catch you later.